What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. So today we're going to be going over a question that I get a whole lot. My setups. So I have random questions at all times about my crankbait setup, my jig setup, this, that, and other, and I'm going to cover every bit of that. But now there's something that I want to bring to light when we're going through all this stuff to help you understand why I chose what I chose, and that way you can make the decision yourself, because my setup is not as important as what you're going to be using it for. So either way, guys, stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this. Well, actually, before we do, I do want to say, if the video helps you, if my videos help you in any way, make sure to like, subscribe. It helps me a whole lot, get me in the algorithm. Also, comment down below if you have anything to add to what I'm saying. I mean, that's what we're all here for. That's the whole reason that I made this channel, was to help people with bass fishing and just leave something to the community, do something for the bass fishing community, whether you're 2 years old or 80 years old. It doesn't matter. That's what this channel is for. I want to help you catch fish, and I hope that we can all help each other catch fish, okay? So with that being said, we also got members only. So, if you can afford it, $2 a month, it helps me out a whole lot with tackle equipment, all that stuff. Gas is stupid high. So, but either way, let's go ahead and jump into it. So let's talk about setups. One of the biggest questions that I get asked all the time is, what setup do I use for worms and crankbaits and stuff like that? So it varies depending on what you want to run. Now, brands, let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. It doesn't matter what brand you use. There is some that's better and some that's worse. Buy what you can afford. It's no different than a boat. I run a 98 Triton because I don't want to spend $80, $90, $100,000 on a boat. My 98 Triton does just fine. It's what I could afford, okay? Same with reels and rods, okay? Buy what you can afford. It will get you on the water. It'll get you time in. And then once you make some money in some tournaments or whatever you're doing out there in the fishing community, then you can upgrade if you want to. But buy what you can afford. The most important thing is the action, the length, and then the gear ratio on your reel. So let's talk about just a good all-around action that you can use, which is medium heavy. Medium heavy is probably the most used action when it comes to rods, okay? My worm rod is a medium heavy. My spinnerbait rod's a medium heavy. Most of my rods, 90% of them, include my spinning rods, are medium heavies. The reason for that is the tip and stuff like that, it doesn't have a really stiff backbone. It's got a little bit of give to it. We're running fluorocarbon line now. Most people are running fluorocarbon, so there's not a whole lot of stretch in fluorocarbon, okay? It's not as non-flexible as braid, but it's not as flexible as monofilament, okay? So making sure you got a little bit of tip and stuff like that, and it's got some give to it. So when the fish bite it, it's not just, you're not just ripping it out of their mouth, or you're setting the hook and the rod's breaking every time you set the hook, okay? So medium heavy is a good all-around rod. So if you can only afford one rod, I would say get a medium heavy, okay? Now, length. Length is a huge factor. And the reason I say that is, understand that length is all about taking up line. Okay, so if you slack line a whole lot, then you want a longer rod. Me, I typically run a 7'3" medium heavy with my spinner baits, with my worms, my jigs, and stuff like that, simply because a lot of times I let slack get in that line, and when that slack's in that line and I go to set the hook and I'm cranking down at the same time, it takes up a lot more line, so I can still get that good hook set, okay? Plus, it makes it a lot more accurate, in my opinion, for my height and everything, and the way that, my muscle memory is. The 7'3" is just very comfortable for me. Now, with that being said, let's understand that if you're just buying one rod, if all you can afford is one rod, 7 foot will be fine. 7'1", 2, 3, that's fine. Now, when you get in the 7'6" and all that stuff, that takes up a lot of line. So, if you're into that, making a super long cast, All right, I'm talking about you're just casting your bait as far as you possibly can. 7'6" is going to come in handy. So, like your deep diving crankbaits, your hair jigs, or anything like that that you're throwing way out there, your 7'6" are going to come in handy. But a good ratio between 7 foot and 7'3", 7'4" is perfect for just about any application. Okay, so that being said, 7'3" medium heavy. Now, right here on my chatterbait, I have got a 7'4" heavy. Okay, the 7'4" heavy. Why would I have a heavy action rod? It's a lot stiffer, okay? I can get those fish out of cover that's, like if they're deep up in a dock or if I'm fishing some, heavy grass. I got 25-pound test on here, 25-pound fluorocarbon, and I'm casting it deep up in some grass or something. I need to get that fish out. That 7'4" heavy is going to help me get that fish out a lot quicker and a lot easier, okay, without as much resistance. Now, one of the things that I can say that I'm learning about heavy rods, don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert on all this stuff. Every video that I put out is my opinion, why I use it, and so on and so forth. But one of the things I'm learning about heavy rods is it may be better to use monofilament. So if you're having issues with hook sets, try a heavy poundage monofilament. Okay, it's going to have some give to it, but if you're using 25-pound test monofilament, some Berkeley Big Game or something like that, you should still, especially if you're using like a 6/8 to 1 gear ratio or 6/3 to 1, something like that, a low gear ratio that has high torque, you should be able to still pull that fish out, So the heavy rods are going to have a stiffer backbone to where you can get those fish out a lot better, okay? Braided line would be good on this if you're using like a frog or some type of topwater lure that you're covering over lily pads, reeds, or whatever you're getting into. You can really get those fish out with a heavy action rod. Now, with that being said, let's talk about your medium action rods, okay? So this right here is a 6'9" medium action a rod. Why would I have a 6'9" medium? This pole is going to be extremely limber, okay, in the tip, okay? It's got a lot more give to it. The backbone's not as stiff, okay? So as you can see, it's got a lot more give to it. Now, the reason that I would use that is for stuff like jerk baits. You're moving baits that you're going to move quickly. So my soft jerk baits, my hard jerk baits, my square bills, my rock crawlers, stuff like that I'm not making a mile-long cast. But, I've got to have some give, because what happens is a lot of times if they swipe at this and they don't get it very, very good, and you go to set the hook with a stiff rod, a medium heavy or a heavy action rod, then you're just going to pull it right out of their mouth. But a lot of times with these medium rods, it gives them time to get it. They can roll, and then the other hooks are going to catch the fish, okay? So your 6'9", your 7 foots, anything lower than 7 foot, your medium actions, they're going to be good for your moving baits, okay, that you're casting, kind of close to you, okay? You're not making a cast a mile long, okay? You're hitting the individual targets that's in front of you that you think fish are going to be on. Now, same with this. This is a 7 foot medium action rod, okay? 7 foot medium, okay? Look at the bend. This is my typical crankbait rod that I'm running on my square bill. I learned this from KVD. When you have a glass rod, you have a lot of give. So I can run this fluorocarbon, okay? And if the fish just nab at it and they don't get the bait, they're really going to have a lot of give, okay? And if they jump up out of the water, throwing their heads around like they typically do when you don't want them to, the rod's got some give, okay? And it makes it a lot harder for them to sling the hooks. And I've noticed since I've used glass rods for my crankbaits, a lot of times when they come up out of the water and shake their head, they actually hook themselves even deeper, okay? So they may have that back hook. They come up shaking. Since they got that give, that crankbait just flops around, and then the other hooks catch them, okay? So that is a good, little setup for your regular crankbaits. Now, your deep diving crankbaits, I typically run a 7'6" glass composite rod. Same as that, it's just 7'6", okay? It's because I'm making super long casts. I'm fishing a ledge. I've got this bait going out 100 miles an hour. It's, 5 miles down the lake, and I got to drag it back to me, right? It's a 25-foot diver. I mean, I want to get way past those fish and then get that bait down to wherever those fish are and be able to target that area. That's the reason I'm making that long cast. But that 7'6", when they really load up on it, I can still pull a lot of line up at the same time. With that being said, let's go over gear ratios for reels, okay? The easiest way to remember this, whenever you're choosing a reel, the lower the gear ratio, the slower the reel, the higher the torque, okay? Now, on the flip side, the higher the gear ratio, the faster the reel, the less torque you have, okay? So I suggest don't run a high gear ratio. And when I say high gear ratio, anything, really to me, anything over a 7:1 is a high gear ratio reel. It's going to take up a lot of line really fast, okay? So, like my spinnerbait here, right? So my spinnerbait, I've got it on a 7.5-to-1. 7.5-to-1, it's high speed. Why do I have that on a high speed? Why do I have my spinnerbait on a high speed? Typically with spinnerbaits and stuff like that, the fish are going to hit that bait from the back. If they hit it from the back and they're running to your boat, and I've got a 7'3" medium heavy, and I'm cranking down as fast as I can to catch up to that fish, and I swing at the same time, it's going to take up a lot more line. I'm still going to get the hook set. Now, I'm not going to have as much torque, so I'm going to have to be careful about how I do this, okay? Because if I'm throwing deep up in some cover with this spinnerbait, and I hang up a 6-7 pounder, more than likely he's going to get me hung up, okay? I'm going to have to either go get that fish or he's going to get off. Now, one of the ways you can counter that is if you have an extra reel or something like that, keep like an extra, 6.5-to-1 or 6.3-to-1, something like that gear ratio reel in your boat. And as long as you keep an extra gear ratio reel in your boat, a low and a high, you can just swap them out as you need it. To go with all around top line, whatever you like, monofilament, braid, whatever you use, but keep it with like a 15-pound or 20-pound test, whatever you prefer to use on each one, and then you can just swap them out as you need it. You ain't got to buy an expensive reel, man. Go to Walmart and get you a Black Max or whatever they're called now. I mean, I've had one in my boat for I don't know how long. Well, right here it is. Yeah, I mean, I fished with the Black Max when I was fishing big tournaments and stuff. I mean, there ain't nothing wrong with the Black Max. So, just pay attention to little stuff like that. The lower the gear ratio, the more power you're going to have to get those fish out of cover. The higher gear ratio, the quicker you can catch up to them, but you're going to lose some power, okay? So if you're fishing close to cover and stuff like that, that's something you need to be aware of. All right, now let's talk about line, okay? Because this is what I get asked all the time. What about your line? What kind of line do you use? I use Red Label Seaguar. I've used Red Label Seaguar for I don't know how long. Where's it at? This particular reel on my spinnerbait rod, this CR line has been on here for probably a year and a half, and I hadn't had a bit of issue out of it. Now, with that being said, I do use Real Magic. So the night before I go fishing, I spray all my lines down with Real Magic, and that keeps them moisturized and stuff. But that's just the line that I like to use. Use whatever you can afford. There is good and there is bad in all of them. Stick to your main brands if you can. Your Seaguar, your Sunline, Berkeley, all that good stuff. P-Line. P-Line's a good one. It's kind of cheap. I think it's still cheap. I don't know. But either way, stick to your main brand lines. Don't go crazy with some whatever Team U stuff or whatever, because I wouldn't trust it. But either way, a good all-around fishing line, and I used it for years, even when I was fishing full-time, or fishing tournaments full-time. A good 12-pound test, Red Label, Invisex, Abrazex, anything like that. A good 12-pound test, will do just about everything you need. You just kind of need to be careful around rocks and timber and stuff like that. But ever since then, I've kind of went up to 15-pound. I think I run 15-pound on just about all of them. Maybe like 70% of my reels I run 15-pound. Anything other than that, I'm running 20-pound. My spinning rods, I'm running like 8 or 6 pound test, but just depending on what application I'm using them for. But either way, 12 pounds good, 15 pounds good, 20 pound. I mean, just whatever you feel comfortable with, and it depends on how you're fishing. Okay. If you're just fishing, just a regular bank that ain't got a whole lot on it, then, a 12 pound will be just fine. Throwing around some docks or something like that, you should be fine with 12 pound, but 15, you're kind of ensuring like, hey, I'm good. So I would stick to a 12, 15 pound test if you can only afford maybe, 1,000 yards full, 12, 15 pound, do everything you need. So let's talk about spinning rods. Okay. So spinning rods is pretty similar. Your medium heavies, you're going to have that backbone, and I typically run my shaky heads, my Ned rigs and stuff like that on a 7-foot medium heavy. Okay, 7 foot, 7'1", something like that, but it's under 7'3". And I do run braided line to a fluorocarbon leader. Okay, and the reason that I do that is my eyes, as y'all know, and I've talked about 100 times, I do not have good eyes. I cannot see good. Don't wear contacts, I don't wear glasses, but I can't see good. I've had some health issues, so for some reason my blood pressure will shoot up real high, everything gets fuzzy, and then it goes back down to normal. We're trying to figure out what's going on, but either way, I have a hard time seeing. So I like running a braided line like, I think it's Berkeley that I run, the X5 or something like that, X8 maybe, but it's 10 pound braided line. It's high vis yellow. I can see it good when it's on top of the water. But now I'm putting a long fluorocarbon leader. I mean, I'm putting, like 20 foot of fluorocarbon on there, okay? And I'm typically using it on the, I actually use the Lose American Hero spinning reel. And the reason I do that, it's a higher gear ratio spinning reel. And I mean, I've just had them for years, and I haven't had a bit of trouble out of them. They're cheap. I think they're like 30 or 40 bucks. They're not expensive at all. I absolutely love them. But either way, now if you're using like a small swim bait or something like that, then you want to swap down to the medium action. Okay, so my drop shot, my swim baits, and my moving baits that I use on my spinning reels and my spinning rods, I'm swapping down the 7 foot. I stay in the 7 foot range when it comes to my rods. 6'9", 7 foot. I don't really go any lower, any higher if I can help it. 7'1's fine. I mean, whatever. But in that 6'9", 7'1", 7'2" range, you'll be just fine. But a medium action on your moving baits. That way that rod's got that bend, okay? So if they come up and grab it, kind of swap at it, and they doesn't really get it that good, you've got, some give to it when you go to set the hook, and hey, you've got them. But guys, if you take that into consideration with how you're applying your lures and stuff, you will catch more fish. It helps a lot understanding what's going on with the bait under the water. And what I suggest doing is take whatever application you've got now, just take one. So take like a 7 foot medium heavy or something like that. Go out and practice with it. Put a little bit of everything on it and try it, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I've just noticed this over the years, and I hope this helps you a whole lot. If it does, make sure to like, subscribe. I'll see you next time.